I am with my Aunt Joan Arnheiter, and we're going to talk about St. Anthony's School back in the day. She's holding a picture of her graduating class. Right now, we'll talk to Joan about her school days. Okay, Joan, tell us about the time you spent in this St. Anthony's School, the old building. You started kindergarten there?
Yes, I did.
And tell the story about your mother bringing you there.
Yeah, well, I was 5 years old, which you had to be when you went to start school. And I was 5 years old in January, and during the month of March, my mother took me up to the school and introduced me to Sister and said that she'd like to put me into that grade. And so she registered me for the kindergarten, and then Sister said to me, "Where would you like to sit, Joanie?" And I said to her, Edna Trubel. And Edna happened to be my neighbor home. Our backyards had joined one another, so she was a real good friend of mine. So that's where I sat, and I just went there until June. And then I was ready to go to the first grade.
Right, and that was in what they called the new building.
And that's for the new building, and that's where I was registered to go, and that's where I spent my next 8 years.
Now, in this building that we're talking about right now, tell us about the many things that took place there.
In the building I was registered in?
Yes.
Yeah, oh, there were many things in that building. It was a 3-story building, and when you walked in on the first floor, there was the one room was a kindergarten, and then they had what they called a commercial school. It was equivalent to 2 years in high school.
Tell us about the business school.
Yeah, it was a business school, and it was the equivalent of 2 years in high school. And Butler High School was right down the street, but some of the girls, especially, registered in the school there, and that was in the old school that we're talking about. And it lasted for 2 years, and as I said, it was the equivalent of 2-year commercial course in the high school.
Now, is that the course that Kay Reichwein would have taken? Because she did tell me that she took a secretarial course there.
That's right.
Remember the priests who were in that picture. Tell us their names.
The assistant was Father Linus, and Father Basil was the principal.
Oh,
Not
nice.
the principal, the pastor.
The pastor
Of St. Anthony's Church.
Oh, that's very cool. And did they teach these courses, or did somebody else?
No, the nuns taught them.
Oh.
We had nuns for all those classes. for both the grammar school in the old school that we're talking about and the new school.
Now Joan is holding up what would be the back entrance to that building. And you could go into the ground floor, which would be equivalent to, say, a basement. So tell us about the activities they had in that building.
Yeah, in the whole building?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this was the back part of the school.
Right.
And we kids from the grammar school used to have all our recesses out there and playground time in that yard. And that was pretty much the back. We played all the games, hopscotch and everything.
Was that where your lunchroom was too?
Our lunchroom was in this building. And then when you go into the newer school, you go in the side door there, and you can go in the basement. And it was a nice big basement.
Right.
And that's where we had our lunch.
Oh, okay.
And on rainy days sometime in the new school. But now you want the old school?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the old school, there was a lot of activity that went there. First of all, there was a big kitchen. Used to have dinners, and they had breakfast, communion breakfast. The men's would have their communion breakfast there, the ladies would have their communion breakfast there, and the children. So they had many, many activities like that. And then for the men and the women, the girls in the 8th grade used to be the serve at these breakfasts. We were always the service, and we used to love doing that.
I bet you did. Now, I remember hearing that there was a bowling alley down there.
That's right. I was going to come to that.
Okay.
Besides that, they did have a bowling alley that the men used to use. The kids didn't use it. That was for the men, the men's society and that.
So what, they had 2 lanes there maybe, or?
Oh, I think there's only one lane.
Oh, 1 lane, okay.
Yeah. It was in another part of it, so we really didn't even see it that much.
Okay.
But, so that was pretty much the, on the first floor, the lunches and the recesses on rainy days. And most of us, I lived a mile from the school, and we used to go home on our lunch hour, walk, and we would come back and walk back to school on our lunch hour to the new school.
Yeah.
That's where we were.
Right.
But getting back to the old school, when you go in the front door, there was a kindergarten, and there was the class, the commercial class I told you about. There were a couple of rooms, and that was on the first floor. And of course the steps to go upstairs on the 3rd floor. And that was really everything on up there. We had there was a stage. We always used to do plays, all the kids in the school, and we would have the play on the stage. And then it was a big hall, and there in that room they had graduations, and they said the plays that I just said, and they had dances. They used to have dances, and there's a nice stage. So all those activities took place up there.
Do you remember the name Father Theophane?
Yes. He was another pastor.
Okay.
This was after Father Basil.
Oh, okay. The name came up when I spoke with Kay Reichwein years ago. She said he directed those plays.
Well, I don't remember that, but he probably did.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember him well. But when we graduated from school, we had the graduation there. The audience was all there. But we had to, we would come from the new school, we called the new school, up to we had a stair going up the back of the stage. Mm-hmm. And we thought that was such a big deal. The people wouldn't see us. We go up the backstage and come out on the stage.
Yeah, that sounds very nice.
With all the activities, it was nice. And then the audience would be out there. We would have graduation, and every graduating class would have a play to put on besides.
Tell us about this group that you're showing us.
This was a class, a graduating class from the monastery, because the Franciscans, they're clerics, which are studying to be priests, and they had one year assignment in the Butler Monastery. So we got, as children up there in those schools, we got so friendly with the clerics, and we got to know many of the young priests.
Very nice.
That's and this is one picture of a class, of a graduating class.
Quite a big class.
They were all graduating as priests. It was really home for all of us up there.
Okay, tell us about the new school.
So when I graduated from kindergarten, from what we called the old school, we went to the new school in the first grade. And so for 8 years, we didn't move around. We were in one classroom all for the whole day. But of course, you did have recess, and so I always loved it. But every class had a nun. There was no shortage of nuns then, and they lived in Butler too. And there were 8 nuns, one for each class, another one for the kindergarten, and they had another one for the cook. For all the sisters.
Wow.
So they had all those nuns. And we had a good education. When we went to high school, we knew, they covered things that some of the other schools didn't. I used to like to diagram sentences.
Right.
And in English class, they used to give us real big sentences, and we get the conjunctions and everything. And one time I was in an English class in high school in the first grade, and my teacher, Miss Hayward, her name was, had me get up in front of the class, and she gave me this big sentence to diagram, and I had to do it in front of the whole class. And that's what she said, St. Anthony's really covered all that. And of course we had a choir and all things like that connected with music.
Now, do you remember when the dedication took place, when Grandma and Grandpa Dilzer paid for the Holy Family altar in the church?
Yes.
Do you want to tell about the dedication?
Yeah, I remember they had us dedication was a dedication, And they had us, the whole family was there, sit right up by the altar. My mother was so embarrassed.
Well, I think my mother was too.
And I didn't mind. I thought it was great. We were all there. Grandmother, my grandmother, your great-grandmother that gave that altar.
Yes.
So, yes, they had us all up there, and our names on the window up there. A long time ago.
Okay, that's very nice, Joan. Thank you.
You're welcome.